Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast, where today we're going to radiate the inner smile with Dr. Marc Mortiboys. Did I pronounce that right?
Correct. Mortiboys. Yeah, Mortiboys.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. Who is a shamanic and holistic dentist. I hope I got that right as well in the UK. I've been excited to talk to you today, Marc. Thank you for joining me.
That's a real pleasure. I'm really excited myself too.
All right. So Dr. Marc Mortiboys in the UK, and you are a shamanic dentist. What the hell is that?
Exactly. I don't know many dentists that are calling themselves that. Many are calling themselves biological dentists, holistic dentists, natural health dentists, any other terms, but basically any kind of dentistry that's a bit more compassionate and empathic towards natural healthcare. And as someone who has been trained in shamanic medicine, has been called a shaman for over many years by different people who don't know me, it came to me as a vision about a year ago. Into the vision, I heard the words, Marc, you have to step out. And I wanted to call myself the dental medicine man. That felt safe to me. But my inner guidance was very strong. Said, Marc, no hiding, no more hiding. You have to radiate who you truly are. And my ego got frazzled because holistic dentists have had a challenge as it is, like holistic doctors have had a challenge. And I was 60 very recently in May. So I've been around the block a bit over 40 years, and I've experienced a number of arrows in my back from just standing my ground about issues like mercury in dentistry, maybe even the fluoride issue, certainly in our water supplies, and up to a point in our dental products. So we can touch a little bit on that as holistic dentistry, but it just goes so much deeper than that. And as a shamanic man that has been touched by living with tribes in my earlier years, in my kind of mid-20s, when I spent time with a tribe in particular in Indonesia. I spent like a year in Australia after nearly buying into a practice, but kind of qualified, was offered a partnership. I just had this real wanderlust. And this was like 1989 and then eventually 1990. So 1989 in Australia, and then half of 1990 in the southeast of Asia in particular. So like Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. And that's where I started to really pick up all this indigenous stuff, and the Aboriginals of Australia, and then the tribes in Indonesia in particular.
Wow.
So it all started to pour in back in those days.
Well, so shamanism and dentistry, those seem like completely different things.
Absolutely.
How does this work?
Okay, so I could probably talk for a whole day or do a seminar on this, but I'm going to dial it down to some really basic. And if we can just tune into what shamanism really is all about. Mm-hmm. And I'd say to many people, whilst there may be religious contexts of ancient civilizations that had their beliefs in their gods, their earth gods, like the Aboriginals had the lightning gods, and many civilizations worship the stars and star beings, etc., etc. So they have got their kind of deities, but ultimately they're kind of earth worshippers, maybe what some people call pagans, where they're kind of really listening to the cosmos. And what a lot of shamanism talks about is like grandfather sky and mother earth, or father sky and mother earth, and getting really in touch with the whole divinity of connection with the cosmos and earth. And how does that apply to then dentistry? Well, it applies to the whole body in general, right? And there are principles in shamanism that will optimize the human body, its energy field, its nervous system, thus its enzyme system, its hormonal system, its blood system, its lymph system, etc., etc. So once we get connected, truly connected to the earth and the cosmos, we will function at our optimal. And we only have to look at tribal life that hasn't really been touched by modern man. They were always called savages back in the day, weren't they? So the Native Americans, when all the Europeans came to the US, they were savages. They were living on the land. There was no pollution. They were incredibly athletic and healthy. They had straight teeth, big wide jaws, and very little, if no kind of mental health issues, etc., etc. But ultimately, they were functioning beautifully as a civilization, as a community. Most tribes didn't have prisons and they kind of governed themselves. So for savages, I think they were doing pretty well. And as dentists, we've seen the so-called savage mouth as an incredibly great example for us as modern westernized humans. Is like, this is what we want. We would love to have this kind of mouth. You'll see it in the US a lot, especially with your history with Africa in particular. So a lot of the elite fast athletes, basketball players and American footballers with the big mouths, with the big set of white teeth without any dentistry, right? They've just genetically got that, but maybe not just purely genetically, but from their ancestral diet and from their ancestral ways, the deep breathing, living outdoors. So the principles I want to touch on today are the importance of airway and why we're having a bit of a mess now with myofunctional problems with mouth breathing rather than nose breathing, which is seen as the gold standard, where we in breathe and out breathe through our nose versus maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth, or only in and out through the mouth. And that's just a whole seminar and subject on its own. So when you're outdoors, it's so much easier to breathe like this. When we don't have air conditioning and central heating, we have to kind of really use our muscles to breathe and to move and keep warm and get active and sit by fires, etc. So that's one big aspect of biological and holistic dentistry, but take it more to tribal life and being outdoors and camping, or maybe living a bit more off grid and maybe just spending more time in nature, spending more time out in the forest, and ultimately being barefoot or without rubber on your feet. That's a huge one. So a lot of people are finding that they're getting a lot of inflammation in their bodies, including gum disease and tooth decay. So a lot of people are being told to go more barefoot into nature to heal their kind of inflammatory disorders like gut inflammation, skin inflammation, and they have psoriasis, and they have irritable bowel. But normally people are thinking, hey, this could also be helpful for my gums, or why am I getting all these cavities? Ultimately, they're all diseases, they're all infections, and that comes and creates inflammation. So one of the most beautiful ways of dealing with inflammation is getting back and connecting to the earth grid through barefoot. Well, the ancients, to protect their feet, would never have used rubber. They would have put on their feet either animal skin or some kind of leaf, some kind of foliage. So they were still tapping into the earth grid and the earth energies. And there's so much research now proving that just by being out in nature and being barefoot or kind of fully connected to earth, that we as energetic beings ultimately go back into homeostasis more quickly and more easily. And if dentistry, that's in huge demand right now, certainly for tooth decay and gum disease, and ultimately inflammation and infection, then surely there's a place for looking at ancestral lifestyles and shamanic wisdoms. And we'll talk about some of those, some of the dancing, the humming, the chanting, the sitting by fire. These will have incredible, powerful effects on one nerve in particular. And that's the 10th cranial nerve called the vagus nerve. And it's seen as the main driver nerve. Certainly, we call it the rest and digest nerve. And it's what we call the parasympathetic system, or the chill system that yoga teachers will teach about, the chill nerve. And if we can really stimulate this nerve, then magic just happens. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to necessarily brush our teeth with more this and more that, and natural toothpaste or fluoride toothpaste. A lot will just happen just through the body self-regulating and self-healing itself by resetting that magical nerve called the vagus nerve versus all the other nerves that pump out cortisol, the kind of sympathetic system, the fight or flight. So when we're stressed and we're pushing ourselves and we're kind of out of balance, out of whack. So I think the yoga teachers have been teaching that, and the lifestyle teachers have been teaching that. So we're getting that, but not many people are kind of linking it to dental health and oral health. Some are, for sure, because we're now realizing that one of the main reasons we're getting tooth decay and gum disease is because of poor saliva. If we see saliva, this juice that we produce and swallow, so much every day, if that is either flowing really slowly, like it's drying up, or if it's flowing, but it's not actually the right pH or the right acidity alkali balance. So it needs to be kind of more in a neutral pH or slightly alkaline. But for most people that are suffering from oral health disorders, it's acidic. In fact, most people who are suffering health disorders are acidic. So it's been well documented and well shown that acidity is the scourge of modern man. We call it pollution. And when we get polluted, we become acidic. That can be polluted with the foods we eat, the waters we drink, fluids we drink, the air we breathe, and ultimately how we breathe, et cetera. So it all gets blamed on sweeties, doesn't it? It's all about the sweeties. You eat too much chocolate, you eat too many oiled sweets, that's too much sugar, and there's a huge aspect to this. jigsaw puzzles. I don't believe there's just one answer to solving all people's health crises.
Right,
But they're
exactly.
kind of big ones. They're big pieces, and you can kind of work on each big piece at a time, or gently work on a few big pieces all together.
Well, it's so much
So
easier
yeah,
to just reduce or cut out sugar than to make these important life changes, how we're living rather than what we're putting in our body, right? This is so
yeah.
fascinating. And before we started recording, you were talking about how all health begins in the mouth. Tell me about that, because that's an interesting concept to me.
Okay, so the first thing, we're talking about rest and digest with the cranial nerve. Now, ancient man used to massage their ear to stimulate saliva flow. A lot of people say that, well, the research has shown that the vagus nerve, one gets stimulated and gets stronger, a bit like going to the gym, if we do certain practices. And one of the main ones is humming. So this goes to the shamanic aspect of tribal life with the chanting and the singing and the dancing, but also look at yoga. And really, if you go was back to yogi times, maybe before Hinduism, and maybe that was a shamanic period. So I've kind of watched YouTube videos on people saying that really, ultimately, ancient India was that shamanic pagan old civilization before it got Hinduismized. And we've all got religiousized, Christianized, and all the other religions. And I'm not anti them. I'm just sitting in the middle and kind of just observe all these different ways of being. And whatever floats your boat is my kind of, it doesn't harm anyone else. Just do what you love to do. But ultimately, they seem to have come from a paganistic, shamanic background. And then the wonder hero has come along, and I'm not going to belittle that too much. There's been a very special ascended master, I'd like to call them. They've come onto the planet and have really transformed their communities. And then they've got deitized by that kind of journey. And I think that's lovely. But I also feel that people are maybe forgetting where the ancestral roots are from pre-religious times. And with regards to humming and stimulating the saliva flow, that's where digestion starts. I learned in medical school, even in chemistry, that digestion starts with the saliva. There's an enzyme in the mouth that starts carbohydrate digestion. So if you're just bolting down meat, it doesn't really make any difference. So if you're like a true carnivore, like a dog, you can just bolt down a lump of flesh, and the digestive aspect isn't really started with proteins in the mouth, but carbohydrates do. And if we are meant to be a kind of a hybrid vegetarian, carnivorous, omnivore kind of diet, then maybe we should be chewing slowly. And a lot of people have been taught that we should chew 20, 30 times just to calm our digestive system, be more kind of peaceful in the nervous system and the body, so that we stimulate all the other enzymes and aspects like the nervous system of the gut. So saliva is so important, right? The humming could be a major stimulator for that. So even just saying prayers, a lot of people say prayers before eating, just that kind of communication, that reverence. Maybe you're just setting the body up for saliva flow, and then you eat slowly, let the saliva mix with those carbohydrate foods like the potato and the maize and the kind of root vegetables like potato, carrots, etc., peas. They've all got starches in them. And if we just bolt those down, we're going to get indigestion. And more importantly, for nutritionists, we're probably not going to absorb all the micronutrients as well, because the starting point of digestion was kind of bypassed, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one, right? So I am a mainstream dentist, by the way. I'm not just this character that's just has studied shamanic dentistry, right? I went to seen as the leading UK dental hospital back in the early 80s. Guy's Hospital in London. It's seen as like the best place in the UK to get training. So I have that incredible mainstream background, and there are lots of lovely aspects of dentistry, even in the traditional training, that are very preventative, relatively holistic. I mean, I always say there are not many people who go just to a doctor or for a routine health check every 6 months or even every year. They might do if they've got insurance and their companies ask them to, but the majority of the population won't. Whereas I think we're very conditioned to do that for dentistry. If you're relatively educated and relatively into your health, you'll be seeing a dentist every 6 months to 12 months for a routine screening. So I just want to put that in, because in case some people think, hey, what can you study shamanic dentistry? No, I was a mainstream dentist and evolved over 35 years through the journey of starting with psychology, how dentistry and psychology go so hand in hand, as you're aware. And a lot of dentists have to study psychology or get good at psychology. A lot study hypnosis, a lot study kind of tranquilizing verbal skills, good calming skills. So it tends to start with the psychology. I trained in hypnotherapy. I went into the US for many times to work with Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins and did all his kind of NLP and kind of mind over matter kind of training. And over 35 years, it just evolved more and more into more, I call indigenous styles, soul retrieval, shamanic journeying, going back into the past and dealing with the demons. And why do a lot of people not go to the dentist? They've got demons of dentists, dental demons, I like to call them, where they got scared like crazy as a child, or they got scared by their parents as a child. Sometimes the child goes to the dentist. We see it all the time as general dentists. We see this lovely child sit in the chair and they're all relaxed. And then the parent says, oh, don't worry, it won't hurt. They used to hurt me, but it won't hurt you. Da, 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 da. And then the child thinks, hurt? That word suddenly comes into their mind and can freak a child out. So yeah, to start a beautiful healing journey in dentistry, you've got to be at one with your dental practice and at one with your dental team. So I'm kind of coaching at many levels as well as doing dentistry. I kind of work online, consult online, and I do seminars, workshops all around transforming the dental experience and transforming people's perceptions of dentistry via a whole host of holistic methodologies. If we have time, we can go through.
Wow. Yeah. Just looking at your website, I've never seen a dental practice like this. You offer chiropractic with it and massage in your holistic dentistry. I hate to use that word with I don't know, your practice, your shamanic practice here. You offer also orthodontic treatments, interventions. Gosh, general dentistry, straightening, emergency dental care. You cater to nervous patients. You do restorative dentistry, dentures, smile makeup. I was like,
do it all. It's all combined. Yeah.
Wow. Why do you combine all of this? I mean, I don't know any other dental practice who does this. Why? Why do you offer so many things?
I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to ask you a few simple favors. First of all, please rate, review, and share this podcast wherever you're listening. You know, it sounds like a simple little thing, and it is, but it has a huge impact for us because it helps other people find us in the podcasting algorithms. I don't know how it works, but I do know that it helps a lot. Next, if you would subscribe or follow wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you're listening, just hit subscribe or follow, and that helps you and it helps us. It helps you because then you receive notifications when we have a new episode that's out. It helps us because, again, algorithm magic, I don't know what happens, but it helps. And then finally, you can support our podcast in a tangible way by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast and then click on support the show. Now, we have a new feature too. We are now on Patreon. You can find us on Patreon. You can also find the link to Patreon when you go to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast. So on Patreon, for $3 a month or $5 a month, you can support your metaphysical and spiritual growth. You can learn about upcoming guests, and you can get early and ad-free versions of the shows. So please support us. This podcast is free for you to listen, but we have costs, and quite frankly, they come out of my pocket. So if you like this content, if you get a lot out of it, please see what you can do to give back. Thank you so much.
Well, first thing I want to add is that we're not the only practice that offers what we call biological or holistic dentistry.
Okay.
So that's becoming now more and more common. It started maybe in the 80s, 90s when Princess Diana wanted to have her mercury fillings removed. She kind of read up about that, got mainstream press, and a lot of dentists started to go, oh, okay, what's that all about? And then in the US in particular, there are dentists training how to take mercury out of people's teeth safely. So a bit like asbestos, you don't get poisoned. Because if you're not careful, you'll jump from the frying pan into the fire. If you don't want these gray fillings, these metallic fillings in your teeth, you wouldn't want them just drilled out without any kind of protection. So that's why I think a lot of holistic dentistry got started. It was like, well, we take out mercury fillings or amalgam fillings. But it goes on and goes deeper. There are many rabbit holes with fluoride, with root canals. I was saying earlier on about the airway. And if you have a narrow jaw and crooked teeth, why remove some teeth? It's a bit like we say, if your foot doesn't fit the shoe, why don't you just get a bigger shoe? Shall we just cut your little toes off? And that's kind of been the norm for 50 years, is that we just cut little toes off, meaning we take bicuspids out in the corner of the mouth, usually the number 4 tooth from the front, And for many, many decades now, there's been a movement away from doing that. It's been a bit of a hard slog, breaking down the dinosaur paradigms and mentalities of mainstream thinking that, yeah, we've been cutting off little toes. We've been taking wisdom teeth out for all these decades. Who's questioning the narrative? Oh, we need to kind of attack these questioners of authority. So if you are an outlier, it's a bit of a tough journey. You'll be prepared to have some arrows in the back. But thankfully, we're living in this awakening era where maybe the vanguard, and I'd like to feel I'm part of that, have been kind of laying down a pathway to help more dentists, but more importantly, more patients be educated to think, I want to find a dental practice that offers these. So there will be clinics in your area. If you just put in holistic dentist, I wouldn't put in shamanic dentist necessarily, but they may have an interest in shamanism. But if you put in biological or holistic dentistry, you will at least hopefully get a dental practice that's more empathic towards the human body as a whole rather than as a physical engineering machine. So I think the medical model for many a decade has been very much the human body is a mechanical machine versus the energetic movement, the acupuncture movement, the naturopathic movement, the homeopathic movement, etc., what I like to call the Eastern movement versus the Western movement, where we've been educated on the energetics of the human body. And maybe the happy medium is some kind of fusion or integration of the two systems. And we then pick and choose when is appropriate. And I find when there's an acute problem, like you've fallen off your mountain bike and smashed your front teeth, you need some kind of fast, mainstream, top-end dental care where they're either extracted or they're rebuilt to give you your dentition back. Versus someone who comes in with halitosis, they're anxious and they don't have much saliva and they're starting to get cavities in their roots because they didn't get any cavities as a child, but they're starting to get cavities in their teeth and roots as a senior citizen, for example. We find out that they're on a lot of medication that maybe for their heart or for their anxiety. And these, what we call idiopathic interactions, are causing xerostomia, which is dry mouth syndrome. And in mainstream dentistry, we know all this. We know that this is happening. And there are two camps. There's the fluoride camp where everything we've got to have lots of fluoride. And thankfully, at least the hygienist. So I'm a huge fan of auxiliaries and teammates that will support oral healthcare. But then there's the other camp that's saying, why do we need to put fluoride in here? Can we not think of other kind of ingredients? So we've got the natural ingredients. And then if you go down the Indian route, the yogi route, the Ayurvedic medicines that are out there, and coconut oil is seen as the panacea, like this wonder oil that will kind of kill parasites in the mouth. And whilst there's growing evidence to support that, there's a lot of cynics. But ultimately, I think this growing group of dentists and medical practitioners are here for the people that want that kind of care. If you want fluoride, I'm not telling anyone to stop taking fluoride. But if you want natural approaches to dentistry, we can show you some of the way. But ultimately, you've always said, even though I teach a lot online and in workshops, ultimately find a clinician or a clinical practice that can support you, because trying to do it all on YouTube is a big recipe for disaster. And I think it's great to get ideas from YouTube and podcasts elsewhere, but please, and I really want that message got across. I'm not here to try and give everyone answers over the airwaves. Just open one's mind and to feel a little differently, act a little differently, and ultimately find the team for you. So yeah, it's kind of like asking you shall receive. And once you know that there are people out there, like you said, you didn't know there was, right, you'll be amazed. Within the next month, you'll go, oh my God, there's so-and-so in, Missouri, and there's so-and-so in wherever, just different places, right? It will probably open up for you.
That's amazing. Now, you mentioned the fluoride, which to many people is a bit of a controversy because we put it in our water here and it's in like all these dental products and in toothpaste and mouthwashes and rinses and all types of things. But you also mentioned the amalgam fillings, mercury. Why is there a debate about this? And I think I know what you're going to say, but I'd like to hear more about that.
So I think the debate is that we are struggling with our health over, certainly we've noticed huge decline in modern human health in the last 20, 30 years. So since I've been practicing dentistry, cancer's on the up, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancers, what else?
Autoimmune.
Disease, et cetera. Yeah, and autoimmune. So we are bombarded with so many chemicals. And where are they coming from? We just call it from the environment, right? I don't even want to go on any kind of bandwagon where they're coming from, but when we break it down, there are different environments where they're coming from, whether it's the paint. So lead was in paint, and they took lead out of paint. For many years, people have been campaigning to get mercury out of dentistry because it's going in our water supplies. Because every time it's drilled out, It's going into our waters. We have to now have water filters on our clinic. So at least we're reducing the risk of mercury getting into the water supply. It's in a lot of the big fish. So a lot of people are blaming mercury poisoning on modern man by just eating fish. So stop eating tuna and et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's safe in the teeth because it's an alloy and it doesn't leave the teeth. And maybe there is a risk when it's first mixed. It's not set, so there may be a bit of a mercury release. But once it's kind of solidified in the teeth, then it's safe. And that was a status quo that most people didn't challenge. And then science has got involved and scientific testing has got involved. And it's now very evident that it does release off teeth. But the big issue is, and the big question always will be, is that amount coming off our teeth and our fillings enough to warrant drilling them out? And oh, by the way, when you drill them out, there's a big release of them as well, like asbestos in a roof. So there's a huge debate. And I always say, I've done video blogs on don't dump it in the frying pan, from the frying pan into the fire. Because if you just go and panic and hear this information, panic and rush off to any old dentist, and most dentists don't like doing it because they don't believe that it should be done. So if you find a dentist that does believe it should be done, they will do it in a quarantine kind of way, or they should do it in a quarantine kind of way. There are also risks to our teeth. When you drill out a filling, it's a risk to our teeth, let alone the mercury issue. The more you drill a tooth, the more you set it up to fail.
Now, so when you say a quarantine type of way, what do you explain that, please?
So when a filling is vibrated on and drilled to remove it, the heat and the water will release a plume of mercury vapor. That's been proven by science. And I think most dentists accept that. And most of them will say, well, it's not enough to poison us and to stop us from doing it. But if we're going to take it seriously like we do with asbestos, where to remove now asbestos from a roof, there are these air pressure systems that get put in. You have to pay quite a lot of extra money on the building work to just create these kind of safer environments for the builders and anyone else in the local area to breathe in that air. So we do that in dentistry. We'll give a nasal hood, so you'll be breathing an alternative airway supply, and the teeth will be coated and covered in protective products that will stop bits of metal going down the throat and in under the tongue. So there are protective protocols. It's called SMART, S-M-A-R-T, and there's an organization called the IAOMT, the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. You can put that on your write-up, and you just put that organization and you'll find a listed group of dentists in the US that will be offering dentistry removed with the SMART protocol, which is a much safer way than just traditionally drilling it.
Right.
And I could talk again just on the whole podcast just on that. And I'd be ashamed to do that. I would like to excite people to maybe research SMART amalgam removal and do some soul searching. Do you really need to do it? Because I'm finding that not everyone has to do it. Most people want to do it because not only is it a heavy metal that is supposedly the most toxic heavy metal known to man. I mean, there's some other nasty cadmium and lead. They're not great stuff either. But we all know that mercury, if you had still some kind of mercury device in your home, and you have to kind of speak and organize with your local authorities to get it kind of picked up. And they tend to come in hazmat suits and they'll take your kind of old thermometers and old mercury toys. I remember as a child playing with little mercury toys where you had like a little globule of quicksilver or mercury and you moved it in and out of holes and around things. Those games were banned years ago because of the concerns of safety of mercury. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, and it's a rabbit hole. When your eyes are open, you can't go back. You don't want to offer mercury filling to anyone. And you know what? Thankfully, because those fillings are gray, silver color, there's no one really wanting them. The only reason people have them is either the dentist just loves it because it's quick and easy for them to offer it, and economically because it's quick and easy, it's seen as one of the most economical products to use. So it's a bit like organic food versus cheap and nasty food. You know, they come at different price levels, and ultimately pays your money, takes your choice. But ultimately, most dentists love being cosmetic these days. We want to offer invisible dentistry, or if you're one of those brigade that wants super white looks, then we'll offer you. I can't do it. I don't offer that kind of dentistry. I just offer authentic dentistry. I attract a patient base that want to be authentic. So if we do some fake dentistry, like matching colors of the teeth with like a chipped tooth, we'll always kind of just match the slightly yellower color of teeth rather than turn them all into tombstones of white, like icebergs, or we have white porcelain in your kitchen or in your bathroom where you wash your hands. And that's kind of been a trend for a couple of decades, certainly in the US and certainly in the UK too. And that's a choice. Some people are wanting to go down this extreme, unauthentic look, but that's a choice. I'm not going to judge it, but I don't want to offer it. So I just have a tribe of people who just come to me for authentic care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And this is so refreshing, Mark, because, I've spoken with some dentists who are on the holistic side, here in the area. I'm not going to name any names, but you have to have don't ever do the mercury. Oh, let's get those out right away. So this is refreshing to hear. Yes, it can be a choice, but you need to be educated before you make that choice, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Good.
And there are tests. And there are tests. And one of the big things as a more energetic type of dentist is, this is another aspect that not a lot of dentists really think about, is that an older filling. So say I'm 60 now. Say I had a filling when I was 15 or even 10. And they do last. They're a great filling material in terms of longevity. If that filling has lasted for 50 years, it will have got quite rusty, meaning galvanic. So we will use an electrical galvanometer or a multimeter, like an electrician's multimeter. We'll measure the millivolts that's coming off the filling. But for a lot of people, it's very high. And that's an indication of rusting, oxidation, etc. But what a lot of people don't really perceive is if you've got a molar, like an upper molar and a big filling there, and your sinus is here, your eye is here, and hopefully your brain is here. So electrogalvanism is a current, it's a frequency. It could be a disruptive current to nervous system function. So that what we're seeing that now with mobile phones and other EMS. Maybe we have these kind of already locked in our teeth if we're not careful. So that's one thing I would always say to people is go and find a dentist that will measure it. And it may not be a rusty one. It may be a very stable one, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of the modern ones will be young and be less rusty. So maybe a young mercury filling could be relatively safe and stable. So I sit really quite in the middle. I tend to play devil's advocate. I prefer being devil's advocate. I have my leanings, but I like to rein it back into the middle. So I don't want to be seen as a left winger or a right winger. You know, I want to be kind of bang in the middle. And as a clinician, I like to help my patients how they want to be treated, because I have a tribe of patients that have seeked me out over 30 plus years, relatively psychically, because I haven't really overly advertised whilst a clinician, because I didn't really want too many more arrows in my back. It's amazing how you can attract those arrows by just being a good human being.
Right.
It just threatens people. It threatens the mindset, threatens the paradigm. And so I've always offered all choices. And if someone wanted a mercury filling, I'll just say, well, I don't do it. But that's what you want. We'll go and find someone who gives you that sort of care. So yeah, I've never been really one to sell. And I think if you are truly holistic, let alone shamanic, you have a very powerful sense of self-conscience and the laws of karma. So, you know, however you're operating, it's going to come back at you. So if you are giving truly from your heart and 100% authentically, then that potentially is going to give you a different kind of journey to someone who's just kind of filling their book and doing the dentistry hard and fast for kind of what I call fiscal reasons or financial gain versus what the patient truly needs. And that's not just happening in dentistry, right? It's happening in car mechanics. It's happening in building mechanics. There's a whole range of different personalities in the world that will offer you different levels of integrity. So I would like to believe that if you're kind of coming from the place of holistic, shamanic, etc., you're coming from a high source, a high sense of creative source, whether you want to call that God or the universe or spirit, great spirit. I like these Native American terms like great spirit. You know, I just think that's a powerful way to call God, but I love the word God too. So I'm kind of brought up Christian, still very Christian, but I'm open to all faiths. I've traveled a lot around the world and been in temples, been in mosques. I haven't been in a synagogue yet, but I've been in temples, mosques, big ancient kind of ancestral places like Ayers Rock in Australia and mountains and volcanoes around the world where they're highly kind of governed or worshipped by the indigenous people of the area. And feel very privileged to have had that kind of broad experience. And that allows me also to kind of be a little bit more open-minded and less attached to any particular belief. Yeah.
Here's the secret is that they're all connected anyway. It's all basically the same thing.
I'd like to say so. And I feel shamanism teaches me that as well. That's all connected. You really get in touch with that. So one of my big passions, and I experienced it from an early age, is sweat lodging. And I'm about to open a sweat lodge center in the Isle of Wight. And it allows me to express my shamanic side. It will be a healing center for every aspect of health, but a dental health center too, a dental healing center where there'll be a lot of detoxification and spiritual relief of trauma from dentistry. So we've got this emotional aspect of dentistry that a lot of people have experienced where they have become phobic or very negatively associated with dentistry. It could be treated with hypnotherapy. It can be treated with neurolinguistics. There's lots of audio programs you can get on Spotify to kind of go on meditations to heal past trauma. But a sweat lodge is a fantastic way to deal with trauma. And so that's one thing I'll be offering people, an opportunity in a group to release traumas from dentistry, let alone other traumas. And I want to touch a little bit of an interesting subject, which I've mentioned on previous podcasts, is why have I gravitated to this aspect? And it's because it's come to me. It's come to me via patients who have sat in my chair and they've just come saying, Mark, I just want an examination. They haven't said why they're particularly here other than they want screening. Then I'll touch them on the face, touch them on the neck here where we examine lymph glands and TMJ, and they will react and they'll go into a past trauma just with my energy field, just with my finger touch. And I would trigger something within them. They'll go into a horrendous memory, like a nightmare. And I'll just sit back and kind of support them, help them maybe witness the experience. Like I take a step away and maybe detach and overview the trauma. And when we've kind of discussed it after the release of that trauma, people were just like instantly taken back in time. And I don't know whether they were past lives or a collective past that they were tapping into, but they were tapping into lives and memories that they said was very real for them. And it wasn't this lifetime, for example. It might have been their childhood when they had a tough experience as a 5 or 6-year-old in their current life, but they've often said they were in different countries and they were experiencing, weirdly, their death.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? Tell me more. They were experiencing hanging. They were experiencing beheading, guillotine, shooting. And the freakiest one was one lady, she said she had to relive an oral sexual abuse trauma. So that was kind of tough. If I was like a therapist, an analyst or whatever, then maybe you deal with that every day. But I'm just a dentist, right? This back then, I was just a dentist. That sort of stuff was coming to me without me trying. So it was like, to me, that was like the universe saying, Mark, you are a dental mechanic, but you're also a dental healer. And find a way of maybe merging the two. And as I reached now 60 years of age, the calling and the dharma is very much now to step back from operating. While I still do it and I still do it a little bit, the time is shifting towards now becoming more of the energetic healer, the body healer via many modalities. And sweat lodging is one of those that can be very, very powerful for that. And that's why I'm going to be launching probably September, October time. So looking forward to that.
Right, because currently you're near Wimbledon. And
correct, where the tennis is right now, yeah.
Right. And so the Isle of Wight sounds, I remember the Beatles sang about it a little bit.
Yeah.
The song went.
Jimi Hendrix played there in the 70s.
Really?
He put Isle of Wight Festival on the map. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. So it sounds like a lovely place. You're going to offer so much. But, I want to touch on what you said about the past life trauma, the beheadings, the hanging, the oral trauma, because, you're up in the people's throat chakras, right?
So, yeah.
Very much so. So many people have trouble, myself included. I've got all the things with the throat chakra, thyroid problems, and allergies. My teeth didn't grow together properly, so they're all filled in, and just all types of things with throat chakra trauma that is so prevalent in modern society because we're taught that we can't speak up or that we don't have a voice, that all types of things having to do with communication and integrity taking place in the throat chakra. So do you have energy workers on staff there?
So we have Reiki practitioners. My wife's Reiki trained. I'm Reiki trained. I'm also a crystal therapist, a sound therapist. So for 32 years, I was known as the dentist with the gong. So I've always had like a large gong in the clinic, but I've moved more into creating a sonic temple with more than one gong now. I've got multiple gongs and bells and many different instruments, shamanic drums. And I will do one-on-ones or group work, what I'd like to call crystal sound activations, where we go on shamanic journeys with different aspects. So if it's one-to-one, I can lay crystals on the chakras. So you'll have a nice blue crystal on your throat, like a lapis lazuli or a turquoise, something like that. You would choose it. I'll say, right, here's my cabinet. Choose a blue one that resonates for you. We'll put it on your throat and you'll be lying down and you'll be receiving the sound frequencies and the energetics and listening to the journey that I will guide you through and just take you on a healing path. You usually find when whatever the issue you bring to the table is kind of where it really stops. Maybe in this lifetime, it may just go into other lifetimes, whether they're yours or whether you're tapping into the energies of other lifetimes. That's the one big thing I don't want to kind of argue with people, because a lot of people don't want to believe in past lives. I just say it may not be a past. It may be just a collective past of someone's ancestral life that you're tapping into, but it's had an effect on you ultimately, because when you release it, you have a phase of deeper liberation, a deeper closeness to who you really are, deeper connection to who you really are. That's really what healing's all about, right? Every session of healing we have, it's almost like this onion skin of layers around us. And a lot of metaphysical teachers teach that, the energetic layers that have to be kind of gradually, slowly but surely taken away, either from around our heart or maybe all our stuff, throat in particular. It was about 4 years ago when I had a bit more time on my hands. You may have had a bit more time on your hands 4 years ago, what was
Maybe.
going on in the world. And I decided to do some more healing for myself. And I found someone on Zoom, and I just said to her, look, I have this calling to step out. I feel like the next phase of my life is going to be more as a communicator, an educator, et cetera, et cetera. But I still have these fears of persecution, and I have had over many years fears of persecution, and I've kind of dealt with them through regression therapies, et cetera. But there was still something. And so she did one on Zoom for me about 4 years ago, and it was so powerful. I never really appreciated how you could do a deep healing through, like we're doing, through our communication. She was talking to me while my eyes were closed. I was lying down, and yeah, I had this very, very deep past life where I was shamed, and I actually was a samurai, and I committed harikari. I executed myself because of the shame. And ultimately that was because that shame was holding me back from being who I really was, and gave me fears of persecution. And then there was another one where ultimately it was a fear of persecution, where I was a Native American and I spoke my truth and I wasn't thanked for it, and I had my throat slit. And I had to live through both those experiences through just a journey meditation with this lady on Zoom. And ever since then, that's when doors are opening for me to step out, because those fears have really gone now. And even as a clinical practitioner, I still have the threats of my governing bodies to kind of question what I'm saying, because they'll say, well, you're talking so much stuff that is not what dentists talk about. So thankfully, I do have other insurance. I have my healing insurance. So if people want to question what I'm saying, I'll say, well, I'm talking as a healer now, not as a dentist. And equally, I can marry the two together and say, well, this is dentistry and this is healing. So thankfully, because I've got two sets of insurance, I feel more safe to speak my truth. But ultimately, it's because of my healing.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I have no idea what the British dental system or medical system is like, but here we have to adhere to certain practices and I don't know, silly rules. And I don't know if they're silly, but rules and regulations regarding healing practices. So
you don't claim anything, and I never want to claim anything anyway. Even as a dentist, I don't claim that we can save the tooth. We'll have a go. We're just. And I think people do get into trouble saying, well, this therapy cures cancer, or that therapy cures this disease, that disease. So to me, it's all about healing. If we can be less stressed, if 80% supposedly of disease is caused by stress, let's deal with stress. So if I see someone who's got a lot of cavities, a lot of gum disease, and then they have a dry mouth, we will look at their stress levels, and I'll offer ways of managing their stress. And most dentists will offer something like hypnosis, right? Or relaxation, meditation, or they'll suggest go and do some Pilates or yoga. So I'm just kind of taking it just another level down those rabbit holes. But also we've got to be mindful that the body has got infected. And ultimately we do need to deal with the infection. And there are holistic ways of dealing with infection, natural health products, and there are strong chemical products. So you'll tend to get holistic, biological, shamanic dentists offering more plant-based remedies and maybe homeopathic versions of those plants versus the allopathic brigade. And I'm very comfortable offering those too, if that person merits it or wants it. So if they're coming in saying, I want an antibiotic, they fine, we'll give you an antibiotic. If someone comes in saying, look, I've heard silver solution like colloidal silver is really good for gum disease, or I've heard, and for tooth decay, or clove oil is good for tooth pain management versus maybe taking Advil. There's multiples of choice. I mean, the biggest frustration I feel for everyone now is there's so much choice. And if you go on YouTube, you get overwhelmed with which way do you want to go? Let alone go down the middle road, which is a bit of everything.
Right.
So,
we always say, what can you prescribe me? Give me something, doctor. Right. Which I don't know that that's necessarily the best, because there's side effects with every medication.
Well, thankfully, there are now doctors offering forest bathing, for example, or wild water swimming. Get back in touch with nature. Forest bathing has now been scientifically proven, right? So I think when science improves, that our immune systems improve, because a lot of disease and even the microorganism problems are due to maybe weakening immune systems due to toxicity, stress, all these other factors. So I think there isn't one answer and there isn't one pathway, right? Just like with religions and spirituality. You just got to find your own path. And I think this is what I'm probably most known for, and my strongest thing is I get a bit wishy-washy because people want they want an answer. They want a quick fix. And whilst I can do that, I'll say, look, because you're in pain, this is your quick fix. But if you want to really heal this, we've got to go down some rabbit holes and go through a dental healing journey. And I do that online. I've become then a coach. I see myself as a coach rather than a therapist. And I can offer natural remedies or allopathic remedies, but ultimately, why did it happen in the first place? Is this tooth trying to tell you something? If you only have one tooth that's flaring up, what's the message? Do you listen to your tooth? Do you listen to your teeth? What is the deeper message? Now, that's a big thing about shamanism, is everything has consciousness. You have the wind, listen to the wind. It will tell you something. Listen to the water, stream, listen to it. Listen to the movement of the grasses in the windy day. Listen to the wind, etc. So listen to our teeth. And there are people offering that as a service, but I think it's laughed at a little bit, frowned upon a little bit, certainly amongst the left-brained communities that say, well, come on, where's the evidence that teeth are talking to us? So ultimately, I would rather attract a tribe of patients or a tribe of beings that want my way of helping. And I often say, well, go and get the medical test first, because there is nothing on their scans, on their CT scans, their MRI scans, and the doctors are scratching their head. And often people come to me when they say, well, I've had all the medical tests, the neurology checks. That's what I love, because I don't really enjoy someone coming straight to me and I'm thinking they better get blood tests. They may have a tumor. They may have this. They may have some really nasty diseases that I don't want to kind of jump in on offering my services without having that. So that's where, again, I come in, say, let's work as a team. Let's get the data. Even as a dentist, let's get some dental x-rays. Some people come in phobic of dental x-ray radiation because it's seen as a high risk to the thyroid in particular. But with digitized x-rays and the fact that I've been around x-rays for 40 years and I'm still relatively healthy, I take it with a pinch of salt a little bit about dental x-ray. I am worried about chest x-ray. I am worried about some of the bigger scans that we're doing on the human body. Now that they're being digitized and every company is working really hard to lower the doses of ionizing radiation, because we do know that it's accumulative and there is a reason to be a little bit nervous of having lots and lots of scans, especially if they're not life-threatening diseases. And a lot of people say, well, it's a toothache. I don't need an x-ray because I don't want an x-ray because it's not life-threatening. And I say, well, it could be life-threatening. You could get a sepsis and it could go into the brain. People do die from dental infections. Pretty rare, but people can die or certainly get very ill from a dental infection. So again, here's my kind of mainstream education kicking in. Like you said, you've got a family member who's in dentistry. They'll be reassured that I'm not this guy that's just saying, have a herb for everything or have a meditation for everything or go in a sweat lodge and you'll be healed. It's not about that. It's about integrating everything, but ultimately get your nervous system more set, get connected to nature, get connected to the universe, have the best opportunity with your own immune system by tapping into all these other energies, get more homeostasis, more balance. And with balance, self-healing is occurring and is happening for a lot of people. Even people talk about faith healing, how horrendous disorders suddenly overnight are healed because of faith. But usually a religious faith, and often a Christianity faith, but it can be any faith.
Believe. I believe that all healing is really faith healing, because if you have faith in traditional medicine, that's probably going to work for you. If you have faith in surgery, if you have faith in this doctor, if you have faith that you can be healed, right? That you've got to have belief at some level, right? So that's wonderful. And then you mentioned how the body speaks to us. You have to listen. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Michael J. Lincoln. He was a psychologist. Yeah, he wrote this book called Messages from the Body, Their Psychological Meaning. He was a psychologist who had thousands of patients, and he looked at all of their physical complaints. He matched it up with their childhood and familial traumas. And then he wrote this book about how every part of the body has its own message, even the teeth. And he breaks it down, each tooth, what that represents psychologically.
We'll study that stuff today. Wow, thank you.
I'll send you a link to that because I refer to him all the time. But no, you're absolutely right. We have to listen to these things because we store this trauma and belief system in the body, right? We've got to look at that. Wow. I'm so excited about this new healing space. What's it going to be called?
So it's going to be called the Isle of Wight. It's not that difficult, really. The Isle of Wight Sweat Lodge Healing Center. It's going to be what it says on the tin. So the Isle of Wight Sweat Lodge Healing Center. And by the way, something we haven't touched on, and again, your family member will be dealing with a lot of problems.
Yeah, my brother is a dentist. Mm-hmm.
As is your brother. So every day we deal as a dentist, whatever faculty in dentistry you offer, you will ultimately be seeing regularly ground down teeth, sensitive teeth, and fracturing teeth, even in young people. We're even seeing healthy, unfilled teeth splitting in half because of grinding, T&J problems. So again, we haven't really touched on that. We touched on tooth decay and gum disease, but that's another big factor. It's now called the next form of dental disease, which we call occlusal disease or bite disease, where people are just grinding the heck out of their teeth, sadly, because of stress. And who knows whether it's just emotional stress. There's now research showing that parasites inside the jaw capsule, especially chlamydia-able parasite, the sexually transmitted parasite called chlamydia, that's often found in grinding of people in the capsule of the joint between the skull and the jaw joint. So it's quite remarkable that we're discussing today kind of multifactorial causes. I was gobsmacked when I found out that parasites in the jaw capsule are causing people to grind their teeth. That's quite a new one on me. And I scratched my head on that one, thinking, well, what about parasites everywhere else? Gut parasites. Are we riddled with parasites? A lot of people believe we're riddled with parasites unless you're cleansing yourself on a regular basis. This brings me on to gum disease. Whilst we can now analyze different microorganisms in gum pockets. So if you have to go and see a gum specialist or a hygienist, you can have modern tests and modern ideas to find out exactly what it is that's causing the problem. What's interesting is that it's quite new among the dental fraternity, maybe even your brother, is that there are certain parasites that are showing up that can't be treated with antibiotics and can't even necessarily be treated with just simple remedies like herbal, like salty water or coconut oil. And the real critters are, there's one called Porphyromonas gingivalis. The acronym is PG. So you might want to look PG up. But also amoeba. Most people have had some kind of awareness of amoebic dysentery. This is where you go traveling, you get a tummy upset. I got that when I was in India 35 years ago. And I got really bad deli belly. And then I found out I had to go to a hospital of tropical diseases that had amoebic dysentery. But a lot of people are presenting with amoeba in the gums, and they're not getting better with traditional cleaning and maybe even antibiotics. And then there's a group of dentists and health practitioners saying it's because they've got to be treated with antifungal agents. Now, some oils are antifungal or have antifungal properties. That's why I think coconut is becoming quite a popular idea. But there's sesame oil. The Europeans use olive oil. So there are different oils for different regions that seem to be very therapeutic. I mean, in India, castor oil is this magic cure for so many disorders, but I don't hear them using castor oil in their gums. It's a sticky oil. You have to be quite a liquid oil like sesame or coconut. But yeah, parasites in the mouth is a huge, huge one. And gum disease is constantly not being eradicated. But it used to be thought, and it still is, a big factor that it's scurvy. There's a lot of food eating going on in the West, but not a lot of nutrition. There's a great expression. We've never been so well fed, but so undernourished at the same time. So we're eating all that kind of starch, all the pizza, all the fast food. So we're getting satiated. Our bellies are always full, but are we getting enough vitamin C? And without vitamin C, you got to get scurvy, which is the starting of gum disease. And then maybe that's when the parasites get in because they start to open up and become leaky. And this is where the biological dentists are now really waving their flag, me included, is that we've all heard of leaky gut. Well, this is what we call leaky gum, because once your gums swell up and bleed, and when you brush and floss, it's like blood is coming out on your toothbrush or in your sink. Actually, that means it's a two-way street. The bugs in your mouth that are meant to just stay in the mouth can actually get into the bloodstream. And that's why now oral health is becoming a big hot topic, and why we said at the beginning, it all starts in the mouth. And that's health, but disease is now starting in the mouth, it seems like, because all those microorganisms are ending up in every possible place. And pathologists are seeing it in the brain with Alzheimer's and dementia. They're seeing it in the cardiovascular system with heart disease. They're seeing it in livers and kidneys, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of blame now on oral microorganisms. And if you have a cardiovascular problem, mainstream dentists patients will be sent to mainstream dentists. They go and get your teeth checked. And if you've got gum disease, get it sorted out. We want to do a heart operation or whatever, but we don't want to do it while you've got bleeding gum. It's not a holistic medicine. It's kind of a great marriage of the two. And hygienist therapy is a holistic therapy. It's basically lymph massage. When they're cleaning, and usually with ultrasound, they're spraying water, they're water jetting your gums, they're massaging your gums. They say they're also removing the tartar, which is debatable. Well, that's a big problem. Well, they're flushing away the biofilm that's full of parasites. Okay. And they're stimulating fresh blood flow that will hopefully be the healing blood flow. So it's kind of disinfected and healing if we're getting it right. But what if we're leaving the parasites there? And that's why some people are not getting better, right? They may have a little bit of an improvement, but they're not healing because we're flushing some of it away, but we're not getting all of it away. And then what if their pH is out of whack? What if they're really acidic? What if they're mouth breathing? What if they are on medications that are making them dry? It's like all hands on deck. And maybe it's a losing battle, like with a lot of chronic health problems. So I'm hoping going back to nature, hoping people are just waking up. The world seems to be waking up. The last 4 years have shown people that quick fixes aren't always the way. And I'll say to most people that dental healing is not a quick fix. It's a 1 to 5 year journey as a minimum. And it may be a lifetime journey. If you're my age, if you're in your 20s, it's probably a relatively short journey. If you're someone with a lot of issues, a lot of root canals, a lot of gum disease, a lot of missing teeth, a lot of dental implants, et cetera, that's a lifetime journey to keep that in balance. And there are very holistic ways of keeping the mouth in balance called the oral biome. So there are now modern ways of dealing with that. We're looking at probiotics, prebiotics, and probiotics to get those in natural toothpaste. There are herbal remedies for that. And there are so many rabbit holes. And there are mainstream products as well. So I don't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that said, mouthwash is with alcohol are getting a really bad name right now because science is proving that they're increasing blood pressure on people. So you might think that a quick swish with an alcohol mouthwash will kill the bugs, but they're killing the good bugs at the same time. And then the good bugs produce nitric oxide, which is the kind of magical element that the kind of combined nitrogen and oxygen molecules that open up blood vessels. And it comes also from nose breathing and from humming and all the chanting and the singing. So all this magical nitrous oxide is produced by all these practices, even going in cold water therapy apparently is stimulating nitric oxide. But mouthwashes do the opposite. How crazy is that?
Yeah. You think about the mouth is just kind of, it touches all the different systems of the body, kind of a gateway. You talked about
That's the word.
Yeah, talked about a circulatory system. It's the top of the digestive system. It's got skin. It's got bones. The skeletal system. It's like all of this gateway to all of the systems. Kind of important.
Connected to the brain. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Connected to the brain. Kind of important. Right. You've got so many videos out on YouTube where you're talking about all of this stuff. I mean, you're very prolific in sharing this information, which I love it when people share their information. So I just, doing a Google search on your name is a very unique name. So you're everywhere, even on LinkedIn. You're out there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'll probably send you a connection on LinkedIn. So your website's thedentalshaman.com, but also mortiboysdentalspa.com, mortiboysdentalspa.com. Is there a new website? Can you release the website for the Isle of Wight Sweat Lodge?
It's on the Dental Shaman. It's got an element that will expand. It will grow some pages once I open it up, but it's already on there as one of the services.
Perfect. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and you've got the light therapy and everything else and all of your videos on your website, thedentalshaman.com.
Yeah.
Anything that we haven't covered, Mark?
You just mentioned it. You just mentioned light therapy.
So fantastic. Okay, real quick, let's talk about some light therapy. What's going on with that? I mean, you touched on it a little.
So I'm going back to shamanic ways of living. And you don't have to be shamanically minded, but just being out in the sunshine, the healthy sunshine, the morning and the dawn and the dusk sunshine, vitamin D increase, right? So more and more doctors are realizing the benefits of vitamin D. And obviously we want to stay out in the dangerous sun, the midday kind of burning sun. So frequencies and light have been in medicine for quite a while, like ultraviolet, so kind of sterilization, infrared for muscle kind of stimulation of blood supply. So there's a US company and a UK company that have launched sonic toothbrushes. So I call it sound and vision. So it's like you've got the sound frequencies of sonar that create vibrations on our teeth. The sonic toothbrushes have been around for a while, but now they're adding through LEDs, I think they're called, those micro LEDs. They're then emitting, depending on what you want, either a red light therapy, a blue light therapy, or a combination like a purple light therapy. So that's on my website and it kind of explains the science. And simply put, if you're pumping lots of red light into the mouth, you're going to stimulate blood flow. And hopefully, therefore, you might even stimulate saliva flow by getting more blood flow. And hopefully, you're then flushing away toxins and you're kind of creating more homeostasis in the mouth with gum disease and even tooth decay. The blue light is more of an aesthetic thing. It's kind of shown that it will whiten the teeth. It will kind of just create an opportunity for the dentin under the enamel just to be more oxidized and just get a lighter fit. But a little bit like putting your jeans out in the sunshine. As a teenager, I used to throw a few jeans in the garden and leave them for a month or two just to get a bit sun faded. Now you can buy them faded, so you don't need to do that anymore. But back in the day, I had to do that for my jeans.
That is so funny. I've been hearing so much about red light therapy lately. I mean, for everything.
Everything, I've even seen them because as dentists, we have to deal with sinus issues, like ear, nose, and throat issues. And so there's even like gadgets you put up your nostril that beam red light through your sinuses. It's a great idea,
Wow.
fantastic.
Oh, I see it for all kinds of things. It's crazy. Wonderful. Well, that's a good way to kind of sum up everything else that with all of the holistic stuff that you offer with dentistry. Who knew? Who would have thought? At least not me. So it's been really interesting talking to you today. And if somebody wants to, I mean, are you taking new patients, new clients?
Yeah. So fundamentally, also, if people want to meet me, they can meet me one-to-one for sure, but try me online. We just do Zooms and face-to-faces and written. And people send me their x-rays. Some people just want a second opinion, right? Yeah, so they've had a mainstream opinion or even a biological opinion. They maybe just they've listened to me and they want just some simple guidance. They may want recommending someone in their area, which I can't do that easily in the US, but I can have a go. I can do my research for people. And in clinic, I offer face-to-face second opinions, but I do most of that online and a lot of my group work. I love doing workshops and healings in groups. So up to about 100 people in an evening in a big auditorium. It's not quite like face healing, but it kind of has the same power. So we just do a big group journey where everyone's lying down and I'm banging gongs and my bowls and I use my voices and I channel stuff, very Native American channeling. I carry a lot of spirits from the natives and I have Red Cloud in particular channeled through me, Red Cloud from the Lakota Sioux tribe, the Oglala Sioux tribe of Lakota origin. And I feel like I'm being really guided even with the sweat lodging, as that's kind of coming from guidance from spirit. And I just allow spirit to come through me when I'm one-to-one, like most true healers will do. If you're a medium or a healer, you are just channeling spiritual guidance. But you have to check that it's good guidance, right? It's real guidance and not some kind of dark entity. So you got to make sure you're clear and you're clean and you don't stray off the path or the path.
Right. Yes. Set the intention and the protection to pull in the best guides and the highest guides possible. Right. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. We finally made it happen. The scheduling has been insane. So I appreciate your time. And I hope that people will reach out and learn more from your YouTube channels and from the website, the dentalshaman.com and mortiboysdentalspa.com, and then the upcoming Isle of Wight Healing Center. That's going to be wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much.
Don't know what to watch next? Decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win-win, right?